You learned emotional control long before you ever had a name for it. It formed in the small, unlit corners of childhood, where your needs were too loud for the environment you lived in, or where your feelings were treated as either an inconvenience, a misunderstanding, or a threat. You noticed the pattern early. Whenever you cried, someone dismissed you. Whenever you showed anger, someone punished you. Whenever you showed excitement, someone ridiculed you. So, your nervous system, still soft and developing, learned to fold itself inward. You discovered that silence handled danger better than expression, that composure kept the peace better than honesty, and that the more invisible your feelings became, the safer your body felt. Over time, you crafted emotional control the way a blacksmith crafts armor, by fire, pressure, and necessity. You became someone who could hold storms inside without allowing even a single tremor to reach your face. People praised you for this, called you mature, peaceful, reliable, grounded, unaware that what looked like mastery from the outside was actually self-abandonment on the inside. They saw your calm, but not the cost. They saw your steadiness, but not the suppression. Now, years later, you have become an adult who knows how to control everything except the pain of how alone that control has made you. This is the core paradox at the center of your life. The very thing that once protected you, emotional control, has evolved into the thing that restricts you, suffocates you, isolates you. Learn to survive by becoming less. And now you're trying to live while still being less. Is the grief of emotional exile. Living the version of you that could have existed if you were ever allowed to be fully human instead of strategically restrained. Psychologically, this pattern is rooted in emotional suppression conditioning, where the brain associates vulnerability with threat and expression with danger. When a child repeatedly receives negative feedback for their emotions, the amygdala becomes hyperreactive, making emotional expression as unsafe. Simultaneously, the prefrontal cortex develops rigid inhibitory pathways, essentially teaching the nervous system to mute itself before it ever becomes visible. This is the foundation of hypervigilance, a state where the body is always scanning for emotional weather, checking rooms, reading people's faces, analyzing tone, anticipating reactions. You don't react to life, you predict it. You don't feel in real time. You assess, calculate, and manage. You operate like a strategist, even in intimate moments that should require softness rather than strategy. And as years pass, the habit of suppression transforms into effective detachment, a state where emotions feel dulled, distant, or delayed. They are not absent. They are simply pressed far beneath the surface, like stones on the ocean floor. Neurologically, this rewires the default mode network, shifting brain activity from reflective processing to defensive preparation. Your mind becomes a monitoring system instead of a sanctuary. This rewiring also interacts with avoidant attachment patterns, making closeness feel threatening, honesty feel risky, and dependence feel impossible. You want connection, but your body does not trust it. You want to be seen, but the moment someone looks too closely, your instinct is to retreat behind your controlled exterior. So you become emotionally curated, only showing parts of yourself that feel safe, acceptable, or expected. And the emotional cost of this adaptation is deep, cumulative, and often invisible even to you. You lose access to joy because joy requires presence, and presence requires vulnerability. You lose spontaneity because spontaneity requires risk, and risk feels dangerous. You lose intimacy because intimacy requires being known, and you have spent years perfecting the art of not being fully knowable. This creates a chronic emotional loneliness, not the loneliness of not having people, but the loneliness of not having yourself. You are surrounded by others, yet feel unmirrored. You are in conversations, yet feel unseen. You are performing life, yet feel disconnected from it. Philosophically, this echoes the writings of Carl Jung, who said that every adaptation carries a shadow, and yours is the shadow of vanishing, the shadow of narrowing yourself to survive. You gave up authenticity to maintain belonging, but now belonging feels hollow because it is built on versions of you that are edited, filtered, controlled. The fear driving this is ancient, the fear of emotional exposure. To show people your real feelings feels like walking naked into a storm. To let someone know what you need feels like handing them a weapon. To release even a fraction of your intensity feels like losing control of the one thing that has kept your life predictable. And so, you continue the cycle. You manage conversations instead of participating in them. You soften your truths to avoid conflict. You apologize for emotions before you even express them. You respond with, "I'm fine," before you even check what you actually feel. You smile when you're depleted. You shut down when you're overwhelmed. You freeze when life asks for vulnerability. You appear functional, responsible, successful, yet internally, you're exhausted from carrying the weight of never being allowed to break. This emotional control shows up in adulthood through a constellation of symptomatic behaviors that you might misinterpret as just your personality. You may become the reliable friend who never asks for anything, partner who never fully lets someone in, employee who overfunctions to avoid scrutiny, person who thrives under pressure because chaos distracts you from your inner numbness. You may avoid conflict entirely, waiting until your emotions erupt in private, long after the moment has passed. You may feel nothing during joyful experiences and too much during stressful ones. You may find yourself drawn to people who are emotionally unavailable because their distance feels familiar and safe. You may sabotage relationships the moment they require vulnerability. You may treat rest as a threat, equating stillness with danger. You may intellectualize every emotion instead of feeling it, breaking your internal world into theories rather than sensations. And perhaps most painfully, you may find that even when someone is safe, kind, and open, the body still resists trusting them. These patterns are not personality traits. They are adaptive strategies, coping mechanisms that once kept you alive, but now interfere with your ability to live. Unlearning process begins by understanding that emotional control is not the enemy. Emotional exile is. You must begin by witnessing your patterns instead of judging them, saying to yourself, I adapted, I survived. Surviving required me to disappear. Healing requires building emotional safety from the inside out. Inner child reparenting, you reconnect with the part of you that was never allowed to feel freely. Sit with the emotions you were once forced to suppress. Give yourself the comfort, validation, presence you needed years ago. Shadow work, reintegrate the pieces of yourself that you pushed into darkness. Your anger, your sadness, your longing, your sensitivity, your needs. Begin to understand that these parts are not flaws, but fragments of your humanity that deserve oxygen. Somatic healing, work, grounding, and mindfulness, teach your nervous system that it is safe to feel again, all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, gently, consistently. Learn to treat your emotions not as intruders, but as information. Learn that vulnerability is not exposure, but connection. You learn that needing someone is not weakness, but intimacy. You learn that rest is not laziness, but recovery. You learn that expression is not danger, but truth. In this process, you begin to reclaim the parts of you that emotional control buried. You start to see that the armor you once needed has become too heavy to wear every day. Realize that you no longer want to live a life where you feel safest only when you feel nothing. Begin to understand that the goal is not to remove emotional control entirely. Balance it with emotional freedom. As you heal, something subtle but profound happens. Stop performing and start existing. Stop predicting life and start experiencing it. Stop hiding and start connecting. Stop surviving and start living. To continue this journey, remember one truth that rests at the center of every healed nervous system. Never too emotional. You're simply never emotionally safe. Now, step by step, learning how to be safe within yourself is the real mastery of emotional control, not suppression. Integration, not rigidity. Presence, not stoicism. This. You do not need to become stronger, you need to become real. Real people feel. Real people connect. Real people break and heal and break again and heal better. Not born to be a fortress. You were born to be a home for yourself and for whoever is capable of meeting you there. Choosing to feel again, gently and courageously, not losing control, you are reclaiming your life.